Well, I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit more than a wetsuit. Was I wearing underwear? I mean, gosh, ask Joss.
Hey guys, it is Tristan with Nerdup's Newsstand, and I am back, and hopefully you are seeing this video on Wednesday, because we need to talk about Scarlett Johansson, we need to talk about Black Widow, and it was kind of sad to see so many people fall for media manipulation and a whole bunch of tricks that they have up their sleeve. But if you didn't know, I did get a strike on my channel for bullying Chrissy Teigen. So I'm going to be very careful. No, I'm not. Let's be real. No, I'm not. But what I want to talk about is all of this overblown outrage about Scarlett Johansson saying this, what she has done, how dare her. And then I want to talk about the reality of the situation, because there is something you should be mad at, and we're going to go over that at the end, so I apologize ahead of time for yelling. But what I want to talk about is how the media has been treating this movie. Because this movie is not, and let me be clear, this has a lot to do with it. This movie cannot, in their eyes, beat something like Brie Larson's Captain Marvel, right? And of course, I'm going to tell you right now, it's not going to. For one, we're post-pandemic, and for two, this is also being released on Disney Plus. And that is going to hurt it. That's how a lot of people are going to see it. And I don't blame them. You can sit at home, $30, easy, out the door, right? So I want to talk about this. Now, it's funny to see stuff like this, 2019. And then we go over here and it's the same exact thing, 2020. Just got to get that hype up there, right? Got to reuse the same stories in order to kind of make it seem worse. But when you actually go through this interview from The Hollywood Reporter, it's a whole big nothing burger. She does talk about being hypersexualized. She doesn't go, oh, I blame a bunch of dudes. She goes, it was probably casting with a bunch of dudes, right? Because that's who casted her, was a bunch of dudes. It's okay to admit when you're being typecast, and she has. We've seen growth when it comes to the MCU. We've seen it a lot in a character like Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man. Why is it not okay for a character like Scarlett Johansson in Black Widow?
Scarlett, obviously your character could have easily just been kind of written off as the sexy one of the team. How important is it that
Really? Have you seen Chris Hemsworth?
And I don't necessarily think it has much to do with this side of the media more than it does to have something like this side of the media. And that is because she was, in all essence, the femme fatale of the MCU. Now, being the femme fatale and looking at some of the more famous ones like Basic Instinct or Scarlet Street, what a femme fatale basically was, even though it is widely loved as a character trope, was the fear of female sexuality with the original sin of not being a mother. She was that character within the DCU. It was a feminist character always. And unfortunately, when they take that away, because when you do see Black Widow, you will realize that this movie is not about sexuality or anything that they want it to be about. It's about family. Yes, it is about a family. Of course, it's a lot of other things. It's a spy action thriller, and, don't sleep on the post-credit scene, and that's all I'm going to say. But it is not a feminist movie. There's nothing feminist about this movie. This movie, at its heart, at its core, is not only about sisterhood, which you do see with the Red Room, but it is about this little nuclear family here. And that cannot happen. And it's almost like this marketing technique from the media has been planned all along. Because when you look at the articles that are written by the likes of people like Collider, you see from the set of Black Widow back in 2019. Now, I know that is when it was recorded, but they could have gotten an update or, you just repurpose things. That's fine. Now, if you don't believe me that this is kind of going on, you can look to even non-interview articles, right? So this one is from The Ringer. And the whole thing is a little bit of a history of Scarlett Johansson in the MCU and then Black Widow within the comics. And just right here, much like her MCU debut, Natasha Romanoff's first appearance in the comic arrived within the pages of Iron Man's story. She was in 1964's Tales of Suspense, and with all due respect to the late legend Stan Lee, her origins are full of the same sexist tendencies that have plagued major comic book titles for decades. This is very clearly what they are shooting for, and I am not talking about the MCU or Scarlett Jo or anybody behind the marketing team with Black Widow. I am talking about the media and how things are spun. If you don't think that there is a way they do it in tandem, you're crazy. But it's not just that. It is stuff like this getting out. And I did go through, before I go over to the Stephen Dorff stuff, I did go through a lot of these interviews, and as much as I possibly could, right? Knowing I was going to be doing this video in the next day or two. I went through as much as I could. There was a Hollywood Reporter, there was Collider, those were the main two. And then you look at stuff, older stuff. There was one of her on the Kelly Clarkson show. There was some other smaller YouTube channels that, have a little bit. IGN. I went through most of them. The thing I love about Scarlett Jo is she's a lifer. She's not just going to simply complain about sexualization if it were to hurt her bottom dollar. She's been in really, really indie movies. She's been in a lot of stuff that is highly praised, yet kept her cool in the MCU. So do I believe a lot of this? No, I really don't. I do believe a lot of it was framed in a way that made her talk this way. She can answer a question. She should be able to. Right now, a lot of it is, at least in my brain, a lot of what she's saying is explained by her personal growth, going from 20 years old to 30-something years old, and the fact that she has a daughter, putting her daughter in the position that she's probably, let's be real, she's probably been in Hollywood. We know Hollywood has a casting couch. She's probably seen real rampant sexism within that industry. We've seen it on different interviews. People asking her questions they should not be asking a woman, but won't turn around and ask the man the same exact question. So I have no issue with this as of right now. I do think it's okay to, maybe looking at something like, well, let's look at, is this the Collider interview? I know they were going to specifically ask this. They knew exactly what they were doing because when she starts to explain her point, she doesn't remember the exact quote. She goes, "What does he say?" And the lady specifically says, "I want some." And there's no context around this. If you give it context, it's not a bad scene. But eventually there is a point in a woman's life where they want to be more than arm candy. Now, Scarlett Jo is an amazing actress, so I wouldn't say anyone could ever look at her as arm candy. But as far as her role in the MCU, the biggest problem here is it's too late. It feels like it's too little too late, so I understand the main criticism there. This should have been the first all-female movie, right? This should have been that movie. This should have been wedged in between two bigger movies, so you had to go see it. This shouldn't have been a goodbye. She deserves more than that. I honestly think so, because I think she was a great addition to the MCU. And I still think that she, does, in her future, she'll probably be done with the MCU, but she'll go on to do just fine things. I have no doubt about that. She's one of the highest paid actors. So let's take a look at the Stephen Dorff thing. And yeah, I might get a little angry. So this is Stephen Dorff. You probably know him from nothing. Maybe you know him from Blade. That's more than likely what you know him. Oh, Blade's a Marvel movie? Okay, so we're going to establish that Blade is one of those Marvel movies. Or maybe you know him from the Nicorette commercials. Or Maybe you know him from a Limp Bizkit commercial video. Maybe you know him from that. Oh, yeah, you still have no clue who I'm talking about. That's because he doesn't matter. Anyways, I'm still on the hunt for the good shit, honey. Nobody's knocking down your door. Because I don't want to be in Black Widow. Nobody was asking. Let me be clear about something. Nobody was unwilling to make Black Widow because Stephen Dorff wasn't interested. Now, Scarlett Johansson actually put her creative talent and clout on the line when it came to the director. But nobody was worried about Stephen Dorff. I promise you that. So, now he continues to say, it looks like garbage to me. Oh, honey. It looks like a bad video game. If that looks... Go watch the trailer, please. If it looks like a bad video game, I want to play every single fucking game you're playing. Every single one. I'm embarrassed for those people. You just shot your career in the foot. I'm sorry, your career's over. This man will never work again in Hollywood. I'm embarrassed for Scarlett. Honey, she's not. She's doing just fine. I know I'm adding commentary, but this pisses me off that this is being paraded as something great when all he does is make fun of. And I have no problem with people going, okay, I'm not really a comic book movie person, but if you like them, that's great. If you don't like them, that's great too. I have no problem with people not liking comic book movies. What I have a problem with is the implication of him being embarrassed about a comic book movie. And what does that say about you? What does that say about me? We are below Stephen Dorff. We are below Nicorette Man. Okay. I'm embarrassed for Scarlett. I'm sure she got paid $5-7 million bucks. I hope it was more just because of this comment. But I'm embarrassed for her. I don't want to be in those movies because he's too good for them. Don't you forget that. Stephen Dorff is too good for a comic book movie. Oh, honey, you were in one. That's all anyone knows you for. For fuck's sake. Like, really? I really don't. Nobody's calling, I promise. I'll find the next kid director that's going to be the next Kubrick, and I'll act for him instead. That's called a porn. That's called a fucking porn. This next kid comes up and he's like, hey, I'm the next Kubrick, but I'm going to need you to take your pants off and bend over, honey. That's called a porn. This being paraded as something good is fucking disgusting. This person made fun of each and every single one of us. We are below this fucking person. Because reasons. Like, I've done bigger plays than your fucking Nicorette commercial. Okay, maybe not. Nicorette's all over the world. But even so, yeah, you hung out with Fred Durst. Let that sit in. And I like some of their song. Every single time I wake up and I'm like, you never ever have a bad day and you're like, it's just one of those days. And every fucking time I'm like, when you don't want to wake up. Shut up. Nah, I'm old. But, yeah, we are below Stephen Dorff for liking comic book movies, and it's embarrassing to him. Fuck that dude. Fuck anybody that think this is cool to say. Just because you want a gotcha on Black Widow. Do you realize how degrading that quote actually is? Yeah, I don't think so. That's the sad part. That's the really sad part. So I don't know. I am curious to see what the masses think of Black Widow. I generally think it is going to be heralded as a wonderful little goodbye, but a little bit too late. Now, I will tell you right off the bat, a lot of people are going to like the familial aspects of it. A lot of people are going to like to see that. A lot of people are going to love to see her and her sister's relationship. It's one of my favorite parts of Lois and Clark Superman and Lois, because that brotherly relationship is adorable. People are going to like that. You are going to like the familial bonds, but again, don't sleep on the post-credit scene. Anyways, so yes, This is embarrassing that everyone's embracing this as something okay to say, because this is completely disrespectful to the fans. All these people saying they're there for the fans, letting this man calling them fans is fucking beyond me. But fuck Steven Dorff. And I'm going to support Scarlett Jo because it's very clearly a media manipulation game at play. And this is probably super long, so I apologize. But anyways, let me know what you guys think of the entirety of this situation, whether it's Steven Dorff or the terrible marketing behind Black Widow or the terrible market manipulators, like, what did I show? Collider and Ringer and Bounding into Comics behind all of this, instead of letting people tell you what she said or what anybody said. This involves every situation you've ever heard of, ever. Make your own mind up. Go see the interview. Go watch how it was said. Not everything right now is as bad as what some people want you to make it out as. Sometimes it's worse, and that's unfortunate. But you got to judge each situation accordingly. And I think this situation is fair to say we're doing okay. Anyway, so let me know, of course, what you guys think. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.